Om Te Dhyan Yoga Nugata Pasyan. Devatma Shaktim Svagunayar Nagudam. Yaha Karanani Nikilani Tani. Kalatma Yuktanya. Adidishtat Yekaha. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. The ancient seers of Mother India, practicing the yoga of meditation, beheld the divine energy, the Devatma Shakti, existing everywhere and in everything. And although veiled by its own modes of nature, was nonetheless one and indivisible, but which had been incomprehensible earlier due to the limitations of their own intellects. Om, peace, peace, peace. And there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us, may that Brahman sustain us, and may that Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings, and may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om, peace, peace, peace. Peace be unto us, and peace be unto all. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Tat Sat. We all gather here on Sunday on the third class of our series about the 7 Ajnana Bhumikas and the 7 Jnana Bhumikas. In the first 2 classes, we took our time coursing through the darkness with a lamp of wisdom that the great seers told us to hold all the time, holding it up to the darkness, because we find out that darkness, as even Tilopa says to Naropa in the Mahamudra transmission, which we'll study next month, darkness has no existence but a few moments. You bring a light into it and it's gone instantly. And so people get daunted by the darkness, not only exterior darkness when they go outside and can't see and they start to feel fears, but the darkness of the mind too. They think maybe it's there forever and they'll never get rid of it. But that's something that you have to prove to yourself. You have to prove it away. And that'll be bringing that light of Jnana Yoga, which I just chanted about, with the exercise or practice of Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana and Jnana Yoga is what that opening sloka was all about. They beheld the mother of wisdom through the practice of meditation. So those 2 yogas going to the other are the most dependable way of dispensing or dispersing or dissolving that darkness of the mind. And before the live streaming audience joined us, we were just talking about my guru, who never had a cataract eye surgery, because I just had one on my right eye, and now I'm back to 20/20 vision, which is good for my age, I hear. But I remember in the older days when I was in my 30s, my teacher started to get cataracts. He was already in his 80s, and they wanted him to go and have that operation. No, I don't need to see. And so he went into his 80s and 90s, hardly seeing and hardly hearing very well, but he'd still stand on the podium of the Vedanta Society and boom forth these teachings of Vedanta in a voice like a lion's roar. He's probably more like Swami Vivekananda than any Swami I've ever heard about or listened to, at least from descriptions of what Swami Vivekananda was like. So that non-dependence on the senses, the external senses, could be one way by which a person could become aware of their internal senses. You could call them dream senses if you want, because at night your external senses are shut down and you're not hearing, seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, anything. But inside you are still, in your dreams. You still have 5 senses there. It means that there must be a source to the external senses back in the internal senses. And so follow that teaching. There must be a source to the five elements outside, to the five elements inside, roughly called the tanmatras. So everything has an origin inside of yourself. It's the teaching, basically. You can then begin to study those origins and become aware, become a philosopher, and become a Samkhya yogi, and so forth, and have deeper experience, because you know that consciousness is also the same way. It's outside, but it's also inside. Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, Purnamadachite, one of our peace chants always tells us that outside there's the infinite external, inside there's the infinite internal. They're both infinite, but one is changing, and one is original, is the author of the other. And then beyond both, then there's this supreme background consciousness, foundational awareness that it can either be seen or touched or felt by any of those 10 senses, the 5 external ones and the 5 internal ones. It goes beyond them. And there you'll find basically the level of deep sleep, where everything's in a seed form. Both nature and human beings are in seed form in deep sleep. They all come from somewhere. So the whole thing turns you away from following evolution theory of science these days. It's not sufficient. It's not complete. It turns you into finding the origins to external things. And so you part company with those beings who are focused on materialism, sensualism, hedonism. There's a lot of isms out there that people are under the power of, and not just conventional religionism, but also amongst a paravidya, they call it, those people who are following lower knowledge to get to some sort of end or some sort of success. But Swami Vivekananda says lower knowledge will only satisfy for a little time. You'll need to go to the higher knowledge to find eternal satisfaction. And so that eternal is beyond the external is the internal, and beyond both of those is the eternal. So you go from external to internal to eternal. And you might as well call those, as they did in the ancient India, the three worlds. You can say the three worlds are Bur, Bhuva, Swaha. That means external worlds and worlds of heaven. But if you talk about the three worlds as an overall class, and you talk about what's immanent here all around you, then what's transcendent inside of you, you'd think maybe that has transcended everything, but it hasn't. Yet the absolute is what transcends the transcendent. So they've classed this into a nice triputi, it's called. So you start out with the quintuplications. Oh, there's 5 outer elements, there's 5 inner elements, there's 5 outer senses, there's 5 inner senses. I prove that to myself with my own consciousness all the time by waking and dreaming. I should just accept it, not just go from waking to dreaming as some sort of fool, being drug around by matter. So now I've seen the external and I know about the internals as its source. Now I should go to the eternal. And there's where the Atman lies. There's where Buddha nature is. That's the state of samadhi. That's the state of satori. That's the state of nirvikalpa. That's the state of asampragyata, seedless state. And so how does one find one's way back inside like that if one is attached to evolution only? Then you have to hear about what's inside of you. A lot of people sort of default to that. Oh, I have an inner voice, you see, or I have an inner eye, so forth. Well, that's good if you can go to that inner source and open that inner eye, but it's still an eye and it's still some sort of a cause, right? It's a cause to the effect. Brahman is beyond cause and effect. So I'm going to have to have union with that, to have the union of I and my Father are one, or Tattvamasi, that thou art, or Aham Brahmasmi, I am that Brahman. Then you're going to have to go beyond all things that have cause and effect to them. So I'm starting out speaking a combination of Samkhya principles, yogic practice, and Vedantic realization. And to answer my own question of a minute ago, then one of the best ways they found, as I chanted at the beginning of this class, Om Te Dhyan Yoga Nugata Pasyan Devatma Shaktim Svagunayana Gudam. They got beyond the three gunas by aspiring the Devatma Shaktim. Deva, divine goddess, Shaktim, you see, power. The divine power in everything. And they did that through Te Dhyan Yoga, through the yoga of meditation. Why didn't they automatically know her before? Because of the limitation of their own intellects. You see, Kalatma Yuktanya Adidishta Yekaha. They couldn't see her before, so they practiced meditation. They became aware of her. And this is the combination of Dhyan and Gyan. So giving you a little bit of reinforcement and refoundation, as you've obviously all before you've come to this class, studied and memorized the 14 stages we've been looking at, Ajnana to Jnana Bhumikas, because that's what I'm trying to say here, is that that's one of the pat ways in which they trace their consciousness back to its origin. And so for the beings who are born in a higher state of mind, as Vivekananda said, you have to give more help to those who can't understand this philosophy right away. They need more help. But for those who understand it right away, even from their very birth or very soon after their birth, they recall all of this, which I'll talk to you about, recalling it with your divine memory. For those beings, they're already starting out in the Jnana Bhumikas. They're born in them. So they're sort of natural grounds to them. I have another chart here. There's the 10 pure lands of Buddhism. So if you become a bodhisattva in Buddhism, it's much like that. You become a bodhisattva, and so far you're sort of done with the lower realms. There's nothing more to gain there. As Krishna says, I have nothing more to gain there, you see. So now where am I? I'm in the upper bhumikas, upper grounds of wisdom. And I've learned those and found out that they seem very familiar to me. And now I'm going to use them to get to the purest of the pure. So that's called the 10 Pure Lands, Dasa Bhumikas in Buddhism. So I brought it along because if we want to face it off with the 14 upper and lower Jnana Bhumikas, you can see how all these systems in India have been thinking alike and playing off each other with these great systems. I brought another system called the 7 stages of higher knowledge in yoga. So 7 higher Jnana Bhumikas, 7 stages in yoga. We'll look at that too. So this is like giving us many, many examples of how through the ages of India's thinking process, philosophically speaking, spiritually speaking, not just materially speaking, and not just energetically speaking, but on the deeper levels and reaches of the mind, up to the upper reaches of the Sushumna, they call it, into the Sahasrara. They've been thinking about this for thousands and thousands of years, for yugas, actually. Yuga is a very long time. So bringing this up so we can understand where we are in this particular course study. That is, after 2 classes, we've made ourselves almost all the way through these 7 Ajnana Bhumikas, looking at the things that hold people down in the darkness and how they gradually and slowly waken up from them, almost as a matter of course. If you want to swift in the progress, if you're at a lower Ajnana Bhumika and you're suffering and you realize you're suffering, then you begin to go to a teacher, which we're coming up to here, take up a path and a method and practice. Because what do you need? The 4 things we were talking about yesterday at satsang. You need precious human birth. Oh, well, those 4, yeah. The precious human birth, good teacher, and a desire for liberation, plus the benefit of your own mind. But basically, I'm talking about the 4 things that were, more generally speaking, were peace of mind, health of the body, inspiration for your intellect, and non-duality, for your soul. That is knowledge that everything is homogeneous, one consciousness. That background consciousness, even though it doesn't play in our everyday life, to know it back there and to keep it back there frees you and helps you get this peace of mind, this inspiration from the teachings, and health of the body comes. We were talking about that in the drive over here in the car today, how some people's immune systems get holes punched in them because they're afraid of disease, like, say, COVID. Some of us never got it. Some of us got it. Some of us were living in dread fear of getting it, got it, lived through it. So there are all sorts of things that happen to people, but the main thing is that all disease really comes from the mind. And the thinking process, if it's positive, is a kind of mental immune system to disease. That's why the yogis don't get sick very often, or sometimes ever. 74 years, one operation in my eye last couple of weeks ago. So never went under the scalpel, you see. So if you live with this philosophy as at the foundation of your life, then it becomes you and you become it. And you live in that, and then you're born in it, you see. Some born in the higher chakras, they say. Well, I think I'll die at the heart chakra. Well, if I take up another lifetime, I think I'll take it up in the heart chakra. So I'm born with loving people. I'm born with a good teacher. I'm born with knowledge of the scriptures. How about here? How about if I pass away in a non-dual state at the third eye center, you see, that Agya chakra? Then I might as well come back to there after I give up the body and then see everything the way it is from a non-dual state. So I'm using that chakra system, and we can use Buddhism, and we can also use yoga to demonstrate how these souls either are born in a higher state, they're born in a lower state, or if they're born in a lower state, they begin climbing out of the lower state. See? It's just really a matter of seeing an example. If you saw Jesus in your life and you're just a poor fisherman or something, you see, the man's shining. How did he get that way? I think I'll follow him, you see. So you have to see an example of a great soul like that walking the earth. And they take on a great sacrifice in order to come into the body on earth, because they're more acclimatized to, if they do take a body, living in a very high and sublime and refined level of awareness that most people are not even aware of. Like those people who are thinking about, I just got born, I'm living, a terrible life, and now I'm going to die. You see, how's that expression go? He said, life's a bitch, then you die. You see, so that's that morbid, negative, pessimistic kind of attitude that has a person has their mind under that grip, for 100 years maybe of lifetime with a negative mindset. So now that I've kind of introduced to us where we were and where we could be and where we're going, those three trajectories, then we can look at this where we left off last time in the Ajnana Bhumikas and begin to study for the remaining 45 minutes or so left to us. So you see here that in the first 2 weeks, because we figured out this class system is probably going to last us for 5 weeks. So this is the third of those classes. So by the third, we're in the middle of the class series, which we probably want to break through the Vishnu Granthi here and get into the higher levels of wisdom, where these beings just naturally dwell. Like when I saw my guru, he was just naturally dwelling there. He wasn't having problems we were having. People would come to him and complain about their problems, and he'd go, get over it. It's like, those things aren't real. Just think them away, like Vivekananda said. You must think them away. Don't let them get a hold on you, because your consciousness doesn't ever get disease. Your consciousness is never full of sorrow. Your consciousness, it does not suffer. Your consciousness is never born. Your consciousness never dies. This message he could give for years. Whether he was blind and deaf in his old age or not, he'd still give that same message. So he was proving to us that he was seeing without eyes and hearing without ears, that there was something internal in him that was acting as a mouthpiece, right? Devatma Shakti, Sagunayana Gudam. that divine mother had gotten into him and was operating all his faculties. So in that way, then, acting as an example for people to quit brooding about things like that. You're just making them stronger when you do that. And begin to graduate into these higher levels of consciousness, which are common to your Atman. They're natural to your divine nature, to your Buddha nature, and live there. Strike camp there. You see, put up camp. Strike camp would be from the lower darkness. You see, and then pitch a new tent higher and higher in the mountain of your consciousness for a better and better view. So in the first 2 weeks, then we looked at this. Bindu Jagrat was a state of ignorance. Most jivas or embodied beings are born into it by the hundreds and thousands. Look at this world, how many billions of people there are, and have they awakened yet spiritually? When you put them next to an awakened soul, a seer. Second level was Jagrat, which really means waking. So a very minuscule state of awakening turns into awareness of your individual nature, and which means here your ego. I become aware that I'm a separate person and I am separate from other people around me, called my family, you see. So now you see why families are always fighting with each other, is they begin to compete with each other right away because they think they're separate than the other person. And harmonious families, from what I hear from school teachers and people, are just probably not happening. Oh, can't control the kid, so we gave him a pill. Now he's acting better, you see. So spending quality time with your child to try and teach him the Dharma or teach him how to control his senses and teach him to control his mind early. And you find that in Tibet and India and places like that. So that's this awareness of individual and inception of differentiation that comes at this level. I hope you're following along with me, as this is a very quick review we're taking. Third is Mahajagrat. Oh, that state of worldliness just got a little bit of an expansion. It became a greater world to me because I'm beginning to realize that I might have lived before. This might be, like I was saying last week, some people may not believe in reincarnation and they may not know the dynamics of it, like it's being taught by the Tibetan Buddhists nowadays and so forth, the bardos and all of that. But they still have this general psychological feeling and these collected set of words that by which they'll state that, oh, I feel like I've been born before. And see, have I been born before? I feel like it. So this is like Mahajagrat. And it's accompanied then here by believes in man and the universe to be dissimilar. So what started out as a little individual is now coming into the idea that I'm an individual, but I'm different from everything else, and nature is alien and separate to me. Basically, as I used to say, people think that they're born in nature. They haven't found out the truth yet that nature is born out of them, out of their thought process. Trees, plants, water, air, earth, fire, ether, sensing, teaching, touching, smelling. Those are all coming out of thoughts in the mind. Can you imagine no thoughts in the mind and still having those things? Then you can imagine Bindu Jagrat. You see, there's no connection to anything. You're just living through the senses, and you don't know where you came from, how the senses function, or what their origin is. That's back here at the darkest level of consciousness. Now, all of a sudden, you're beginning to make rough distinctions between yourself and nature. And this is not the full truth, but it's also not only negative. There's positives to it. Last week, we looked at Jagrat Swapna, sovereignty over nature. Remember the chart of the powers of nature. There's the powers of nature, then there's the occult powers, and then there's the yogic powers. That is the powers of Brahman. So we had that chart up there, the 3 types of power, and you can look back on it and see that for yourself. But what we focused on mainly with that was the idea of the powers of nature, because mankind is trying to gain sovereignty over nature by by taking its resources to use it for himself, for possessions, pleasures, riches, and so forth. In fact, they'll judge you being rich, not by how much wisdom you have, but how much money you have. So that's how they judge a rich man. Now, a rich man to us would be, to them, the poorest man possible, like Sri Ramakrishna, who didn't own a thing but a loincloth. See, he's the richest man I know. He's rich in wisdom of the mother. He's Karma Tenzin Wangchuk. That's the name I got from my Tibetan Buddhist teachers. Rich in the teaching of the Buddhas. So they're thinking all the way, let's give this person a name that they can aspire to. And that way they can begin this journey out of darkness by foreknowledge of what's waiting for them. What's waiting for you is your true nature. So it's like a big smile on the horizon. See, it's just waiting to and beckoning you forward. Come, my children, come to me. I will give you rest. I will give you peace. Broad smile, lots of light. See? So this is beginning to dawn at this fourth level of lower Bhumikas. I think with this study now 2.5 classes old, some of you are probably getting the gist of it. This is how a soul awakens up from this illusory darkness. Born without any remembrance of their true nature, this is what they're going to have to suffer. Born with remembrance of their true nature, they never have to suffer this, see. And very hard for them even to imagine you're suffering this. That's why they'll come up to you and say, that's nothing, just, blast it. One Hindu man came up to Swamiji after he became well known in India and said, oh, Swami, I'd love to be like you, but I've got so many karmas. I must have hundreds of lifetimes ahead of me. Swamiji said, blast your karmas. Get rid of them right now. It was like permission from a beam of light, to quit being dark. And you're standing right in front of it, and it's radiating to you. So you should grab a hold of that and take it to yourself. Well, that's what the soul's beginning to do anyway. And you come to the 5th level here, which we were also looking at last week, swapna, which means dreaming. It's the overall Sanskrit word for the state of dreaming. They have other words for, say, like daydreaming, like vikalpa, dreaming based on desires, wide awake dreaming, like you're not really here, like you're, like children you have to teach. They're dazed. They're somewhere off somewhere in their own fantasies. But swapna here is an overall larger designation. You can see underneath it, the soul begins to gain objectivity. It examines life's events as if in a dream. So people are starting to wake up from the waking state in that way. And you could use that reasoning, in fact, if waking has an opposite, it must be dreaming, right? Well, then what's the opposite of the dreaming state? Or what's the concomitant of the waking state? It must also have a state where it's more awake. So you're awakening to higher levels of your own consciousness. This is how they describe it, rather than, you're damned or you're sinning or so forth. And all of that can apply at very deep levels. You want to go to the Jnana Bhumikas and then to the patalas. There are also a bunch of patalas, 7 of them, that are called hell realms in the teachings of Hinduism, early Hinduism, and in Buddhism. So if you examine, we begin to think this life is rather dreamlike, then what happens to that is that you begin to remember more of yourself upon awakening. How does that happen? Is that, like last night, I had a dream where I was giving a talk to a bunch of people, and I was telling them, this may surprise you, but basically, there's no God. And so I explained in the dream how there is no God, because there's no God in form. There's only God, the formless. So you can't look anywhere here in form and say, that's God, that's God, that's God. Not until you have full non-dual realization. At that point, you're saying all is Brahman, but only Brahman is. All those other things exist because of Brahman. Brahman doesn't exist because of them. So you're shifting the focus to this state of one awareness that has no divisions. It's homogeneous by nature. See. So you remember upon awakening because you have memories and dreams like that in your dreaming state. And you come out of them, you start to ask people, maybe professionals, maybe your parents, maybe your friends. I had a strange dream last night. And you hear it happening all the time with people who aren't necessarily awakened seers or sages. And they're people just as ordinary as you are at the time. But you hear them talking about that. So it's sort of evidence that there's this deep meditation they went into last night. They're not calling it meditation yet, but it was called dream. And they had a vision in that dream. So waking, dreaming, visionary, and deep sleep. If you wanted to add a fourth to the three states of consciousness, you'd add in that visionary dream state. I did that in a chart once. So there's a waking state, there's a dreaming state. These are common to everyone. And then there's a deep sleep state, common to everyone, but not many people know about their deep sleep state, where all the seeds to everything are. That's where everything goes back into unmanifested state, formlessness. But it's not sentient formlessness yet. That's Brahman. That's the fourth. But in between dreaming and deep sleep, there's this visionary dream state. And so people can touch into that once in a while. This is why they want you to start practicing sadhana. Kedyan yoga nugatu upashan, I chanted, right? The ancient seers of India began to see the Devatma Shaktim how? By practicing the yoga of meditation, Te Dhyan Yoga. So they want you to start practicing. If you've awakened partially, so maybe a fourth route we can talk about. If you have awakened partially to these upper Jnana Bhumikas in your previous lifetime, then this right here, if you're still in the process of awakening, will have much more force to it when you remember it. It'll have so much force to it that you'll go seek a teacher and a path. You see that happening all the time, even in America, back in the 60s, right, when we were getting exposed to these teachings. I see people saying, oh, there's a guru coming. I'm going to go see him. You see? There's a method you can practice. There's something called yoga, and there's meditation path that they're teaching in Zen Buddhism. So people were going and sort of leaving the conventional rounds of religion and society, and all of a sudden you hear about them going to the center and having this teacher and getting this mantra and doing the beads and various things. That's all got a real purpose. It's not just actually trying to enlighten the already enlightened Atman, as they say, but it's because it's to awaken the divine memory. That's what's happening here. It's a possibility of remembering things that happened to you that were not gross, that were not physical, that were not material, and that were more attended by cetana, by intelligence. See, you had some intelligence in you, and it's beginning to surface in dream. We certainly hope it'll begin to surface more in the waking state of most people. We need more of that. Intelligence has gone missing, they say nowadays. Need to bring it back. So let's graduate to what is the penultimate stage of darkness. That is just before the dawn. You can see there, Swapna Jagrat, that you're having, as it were, dream state and seeing that Jagrat, the world, is actually coming from the dream state. That's not just a phrase that I'm spouting. See, basically it's right out of the Gaudapada's Kark and so forth, that we had it actually week before, when we looked at Holy Mother's chart on what transmigrates. We looked at the three bodies, right? And what each body contained, that's what's going on and doing the transmigrating. Not the Atman. The Atman's witnessing, not Buddha nature. Buddha nature is witnessing, not Brahman. Brahman is witnessing. What's going from place to place seems to be going from place to place are these three bodies. See? So we looked at that last time, and we saw that they aligned perfectly with Jagrat, Swapna, and Sushupti, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So that's why we could say here that Swapna Jagrat is my dream state started to inform me. It started to inform my waking state that there was something beyond the waking state. If you want to put it very simply, right? Because most people are they're only here in the waking state. That's all they believe in. Dreaming is a figment of their imagination. Even the psychologists will say so. But the yogis won't. The Sufis won't. The Buddhists won't. They'll say, oh, that dream, tell me that. Because it has a significance, and it can lead you to a higher state, like that visionary dream you had. Probably wouldn't want to take that to adharmic parents, probably wouldn't want to take that to a Western psychologist, probably wouldn't want to take that to an unillumined teacher, want to take that to a seer or a sage who has had experiences like that, him or herself. And then they can interpret it for you, like it's done so well. Our founder of this organization, SRV Associations, was a great dream interpreter, Lex Hickson. He was a sheikh in the Jarahi order of Istanbul. So he could interpret your dreams for you, and he was doing that. I was on hand to see him interpret the dreams of his Sufis on several occasions, and it was a very magnificent process. So what happens at the sixth level of diminishing darkness, let's call it, where the dream state is actually telling the waking state that there's much more beyond the waking state, that you can actually believe me. You know, they often say this, right? Dreams, they say, follow your dreams, right? Well, that's where this could apply. In Vedanta, we don't really like that statement that much. We like better, from dreams awake, from bonds be free. Know the truth. Thou art he, thou art she. You see, basically the men are Shiva and the women are Shakti. That's where you're going to find your deepest connection. But in the meantime, you're still having to get out of Swapna Jagrat. Then you can say, follow your dreams. So this is where the dream state's becoming more prominent than the waking state. Down here, it was all waking, and it began to shift. You see the mechanics of it, right? It began to shift. That's why these little bubbles, which are teachings from Lord Vasishtha, out of Yoga Vasishtha, have been placed here, culled out, placed there in ascension, the way he taught it to the young avatar, Sri Ram. So you can see how he's explaining his scrutiny and observation of how souls get out of darkness. If you look at it this way, then it's beautiful, and it's very alluring to find out about it. It's going to be very beneficial for you because you'll be able to help others when you see these traits in them. For instance, I had a great dream last night. Forget it. It's just a figment of your imagination. Or go to a more enlightened soul. I had a great dream last night. Tell me about it. Oh, you know what that means? That means such and such. So one can interpret, one just sloughs it off. See, so that's why things are heading more towards a penultimate state. So you can see across the board here, recalls events long past, renders waking state lucid. And I think we might have mentioned that last week too. And I think I remember saying that because I remember talking about people who used to ask me, how do I make my dreams lucid? And I said, by making your waking state lucid. Your dream state is already rather lucid. If you're doing your mantra, if you're meditating, if you're studying the scriptures, and so forth, then you have this practice, and your dream state's getting affected by that. That's why you go and sleep, and you have more profound dreams. Other people down here are sleeping, and they don't remember a thing, or they're having hellish dreams. So this all makes great sense as you look at it. So when it says here, recalls events from long past, let's look at this chart now, take a quick break from it, and we'll look then at the last of the states of Ajnana after we see what it means here. In the sixth state of Ajnana then, Swapna Jagrat, you begin to recall events long past. So how does that happen? It happens with this divine memory. So let's look at that really quick. Call it up on my screen here so that I won't have to crane my necks all the time. And this is also another chart that we took in a seminar some months ago. If you remember, we can recall certain parts of it. So ironically, and it wasn't planned, there's a quote from Swami Vivekananda at the top that I recalled to you just now. Greater help must be given to those whose nature has not been endowed with acute intellect and divine memory from birth. So that means the big kids have to take care of the small kids. That's one of the downsides of our educational system, and that because you're separating kids into grades by ages. So the young kids don't have an ideal to look up to in the older kids. And the older kids are not learning responsibility by taking care of the younger kids. So in Swami Vivekananda's idea about education, they're all one class. And they live together, they learn together. And it'd be nice if you got that in a family too. Like there's your blood family, then there's your educational family. All of those should be considered one family, and all the teachings should be given to all of them all the time. Because if someone who doesn't understand it is sitting next to an older person, say a younger soul, if you want to put it that way, does not understand higher teachings when he hears them, and he's sitting left to someone who is living in the higher teachings, it can be immediately, the darkness can be immediately dispelled in that younger person by the transmission of light directly into them, which wouldn't have happened if they were separated. So every opportunity has to be taken and allowed for, and for this higher wisdom to dawn on people. It's the same with secular knowledge. Some people have been through lifetimes of secular knowledge. They're just not remembering it yet. So they have to wake up to that. In the same way in spiritual, some people have gotten the spiritual teachings and seen them in an earlier lifetime. And they're coming through this very quickly and remembering quickly what is the higher light. So to keep a divine memory divine, to keep recollection remembered is the whole thing here. And if you look at great souls, the Tibetan Buddhists, for instance, and Yoga, Lord Vasishtha, and those beings that are teaching about divine memory, then, for instance, Shankara, waking up at 8 years of age to all the scriptures he'd studied in past lifetimes. So he was like by the time he was 10 or 12, he was teaching graybeards about the Vedanta and commenting on the Brahma Sutras in his 20s. And this is an amazing thing to see outwardly, but it's not actually such a miracle when you understand that all of this has been done before. All of this has been given before. All of this has been transmitted before. And all of this has been understood before. Now it needs to be recalled. Recollection has to happen. The quicker you can remember your divine nature, the less truck you'll have with all of this. The quicker you can remember your divine nature, the more lucid and expanded your memory will be in this lifetime. So let's remember that if we understand these things, greater help has to be given to those who don't. Vivekananda's great universal way of saying it. Well, if you want to talk about memory-wise why people are dwelling here, it's called Vismriti, lack of memory. Remember, the whole thing suggests or infers that you have a divine memory, and everything's held back in it. You haven't lost anything. That's how expansive your mind is. They talk about the expansiveness of mind all the time, of course, in this, like not using all the percentage of your brain and all that. But when you talk about the difference between brain and mind is even more expansive than the brain was. And so in this case, the memory that's in the mind that remembers divine events, and for that matter, remembers its lifetimes in hell too, and is in fear, comes back imprinted with those impressions, right? That's why some people, like we were saying earlier, fearful of dark. And some people just walk into it. Oh, I love the darkness. I think I'll go, nobody can see me now. Other people are so afraid of darkness. If something's out there, it's going to see me. Other people welcome the darkness. So that's all because of past lifetimes and how they learned, how they grew in mastery of the light of their consciousness. So Vismriti is run down here. Mind fails to learn to concentrate in the present lifetime. And then it enters a dark and vacuous state at the time of death. Because it didn't study, it didn't work on its divine memory. Then transmigrating mental complex forgets its past lifetime at birth. Remember, you should all know what the transmigrating complex is, because I went through it 2 weeks ago. But the gross body, subtle body, and the causal body, right? You have 3 bodies, 3 states of mind inside, and one is born out of the other. That's why we put it in terms of out of the deep sleep body, dreaming body is born. Out of the dreaming body, the waking body is born. And at the time of death, the waking body dissolves back into the subtle body, dream body, and the dream body dissolves back into the causal body, like deep sleep. We're getting there. It's called Sushupti. That's the next state of awakening. So you all should know what the transmigrating mental complex is. It forgets its past lifetimes when it's born. So this is why we're seeing somebody have a birthday the other night. See, there are a lot of people around. But the waitress serving us was also having a birthday. So nobody was celebrating her birthday. Even though she had a lay on, she was working. But across the room, there's a table of about 18 people all celebrating this one person's birthday. And I was saying, for a monk looking at that, I said, why are they celebrating a birthday? They should be celebrating rebirth day, you see, like enlightened birth day or death day, so that you get out of this cage of bones and flesh. And so one person's walking around with a birthday with a lay on, but nobody's paying any attention. So it's a striking thing. And then people in such forgetfulness about their life, their waking state, and not knowing there's anything other than the waking state. And sure enough, at the table there was a baby, a little baby. It was just born. It was yelling and screaming every once in a while. It's like experiencing its new life. See, so the whole thing is just a major reading of life right there in one room for 2 hours. You could just see it going on, and you're hoping something will happen in those people's life to waken them up from Jagrat, from Bindu Jagrat into Swapna, to Maha Jagrat, into Swapna, into Sushupti, by becoming aware of everything that they know inside of them. Eventually, this is going to be becoming aware of the all-knowing inside of them, what we call the Atman, or Buddha nature. That's the ultimate thing to know. As far as Vismriti goes, because we're pretty much describing a lot of the reasons why these 7 are here for most people, the pursuit of matter, money, and pleasure. Due to that, the soul forgets God. It forgets its own nature. How about Daiva Smriti? That's the other column. You see. So in Daiva Smriti, you're talking about, that's why I'm bringing this chart in right here. You're talking about this level of awakening out of darkness into the light. So you're coming out of Swapna Jagrat into Sushupti, into Subhecha, they call it, which is the first level of Jnana Bhumika. So now we're penetrating through to the good stuff, as they say. But we're knowing why we had to go through this. See, there are causes for all of this. I'm very, very quickly reaching beyond the effect of cause and effect on us, the influence of cause and effect on us. So this has happened. Daiva Smriti here is beginning to happen about here. You see what it says there. Recalls events long past, renders the waking state lucid, and realizes states are beset with pain. So it's already beginning to look for experiences beyond pleasure and beyond pain, right? This is a key teaching for lifting oneself out and above that duality of pleasure and pain that the father of yoga talks about. So as we're here and we're beginning to wake up toward the Jnana Bhumikas, Daiva Smriti is beginning to happen. Let's look at it. By dint of religious and spiritual experiences occurring in life due to practice, the soul remembers its past existences. By dint of religious and spiritual experiences. You can have those in dream, as we just described 10 minutes ago. But this is beginning to become more conscious. So how do you render the dreaming state lucid? By practicing spirituality in your waking state. Then your dreams will become unveiled to you, and what's being unveiled in your dreams will reflect back on your waking state. See? And now you're walking around in a more lucid dream. It's not like, well, I wish I could have lucid dreaming so I can enjoy all sorts of things in this kind of fantasy in my mind. What you really want is make your dreams lucid, transfer them back to waking so that you can experience everything here fully and be done with it. Be done with all your experiences here. Tilopa says that to Naropa in his Mahamudra transmission. We'll look at it next month. Basically, be done with all your experiences here. Then put your mind on Buddha nature. So this echoes what I already said twice today. It's through spiritual practices that darkness goes away. Second, thenceforth, that means from then on, all lives are accompanied by worship of the highest deities and meditation on formless reality. So many of us in the West, as I know from experience, not only as a practitioner, but as a guide, I want to call it that, many of us had this experience. We weren't worshiping God with form because we didn't like conventional religion, and we didn't know anything about God with form in the formless God, you see. So we didn't have either of those, form and formlessness. But now with the awakening of your divine memory after doing practice, what do you have? All your lives from then on will be worshiping the highest deities. So now I can say, Om Namah Ganeshaya, Shrim Hrim Krim Aim Kamlavashan Le Swaha. Shrim Hrim Saraswat Jai Swaha. These are all the deities behind me at the shrine here in our center. So I can look at each of these deities in which we offered flowers, which we burned incense in front of, which we offered candlelight to, and that we said mantras to, and worship God with form in my life. I wasn't doing that in my first 20 years in the West, under parents, family. I wasn't doing any of that, nor was I getting any teachings about formless reality. They didn't know. They were living in a waking state only. So this is, this is bitter news, but it does explain the Smriti, why people fall into this. It's really so much of it is up to recollection or not, having a divine memory or not. But this is explaining something very beautiful and very positive and inspiring. First by practice, then you begin to become born with the experience of your practice in tow, right? You're born into this life already headed toward your guru. You're born into this life already recalling a method you practiced before. You're born into this life already seeking religion and what lies beyond religion. You see people like that. They're not satisfied with the world and what's going on. And if they came through this, you see how they awoke now from it, right? These were their struggles. This was nocturnal darkness that they were writhing in. See, I want to quote some of the poems and songs and stotrams out of the East. they were writhing in this horrible darkness all the time, but they were having experiences that were opening up pathways for them to get out. Until finally, they came to this combination of the knowledge of waking and dream and what it all signifies. What everything here signifies, that darkness was a great teaching, and it was meant there. It was intended. Suffering was intended by God to wake you up. So people say, why does God cause suffering to everyone? It's to wake them up, because they won't otherwise. Pleasure does not wake you up. It puts you into this. Pleasure dulls your memory. You might have seen or you might have noticed. Pain wakes you up. What's sweet in the beginning turns sour later. Somebody quoted that yesterday at satsang. One of my students said that back to me. What's pleasurable, what's sweet today turns sour tomorrow. What's sour today will turn sweet tomorrow. So this is what's sour today. Practice. It turns sweet later. So what's sweet today would be, what turns sour later would be all of these forgetful tendencies in your mind due to weakness. We already looked at weakness. It's probably here somewhere. There it is. Remember we looked at weakness last week and all its concomitants and how weakness leads the soul away. I'm only keeping this chart on hand in case we want to relook at how awakening happens, because we look more deeply in how sleepiness happens. But this is how wakefulness happens. Strength and weakness are the two concomitants there. So that comes forward here. The third thing here is everything in relativity, including objects, reflect light and remind the soul of Brahman. Oh, so there's that expression, game over. See, well, this is about, putting the final coffin nail in the grave of Maya, Maya's influence over you. You see, if this begins to happen to you, game is over. The game of pretend, the game of masquerade, the game of suffering, the game of gluttony, pleasure, that's all getting over for you. And now you can stand on your own 2 feet, like a man should be able to stand. A real man should be able to stand. And of course, a woman infused with the strength of the Divine Mother, Shakti. So remember what it said, everything in relativity, including objects, reflect light and remind one of Brahman. Or read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and see how somebody is sweeping with the broom, he went into samadhi. Somebody fired a gun, he went into samadhi. Somebody mounted the Oktaloni monument and saw everything from a height, he went into samadhi. There wasn't anything in his life like a woman in English circus came to India, a woman riding around in a circle on a horse with perfect balance, went into samadhi. Oh, that she must have taken so much practice to do that. And look what great balance she has, you see. So an illumined soul, it's not just an impressionable mind we're talking about there, like childlike or childish. It's just like he's been through everything. He's there on earth to communicate how to get free of darkness, how to remind yourself of who you are, remember who you are. Isn't this going to be such a quicker way of awakening than drudging along, thinking that maybe, as Shankara says, hundreds and thousands of asanas will never awaken you. Thousands and thousands of breathing exercises never awaken you. Progeny, money will never awaken you. See, how many rebirths are you going to have courting all that and never be awakened to your true nature, never to be awakened to the real purpose of your existence and the meaning of existence that lies behind it? So what about everything in relativity looking like Brahman to you? Can you even imagine it? You can read Sri Ramakrishna, you can read about Ramana Maharshi and so forth, read about Lord Vasishtha, and you can just envision them, feel them walking around everything just in wonder. It's not like they become jaded again. Oh, there's that same old tree again. Or some old woman riding along in a car. Look at the nice trees. See, really, at 80, that's all you can say? The nature of reality is that inspiring. So it brings everything that was covered before into the open. So now you can see it as the light of Brahman. We were talking about that yesterday at satsang. Somebody sees a tree, kid sees a tree, he thinks climb. So his mantra right now is one word, climb. Then a fruit seller sees a tree, thinks profit, pick. So he's got a two-word mantra, pick for profit. Then an industrialist or a merchant sees a tree, thinks furniture. I'll cut that down. So he's got a three-word mantra. So cut that down, and that's going to be wood. So they're all looking at three levels of the tree with their different ways of thinking about it. But then the non-dualist is looking at the tree and saying, it's Brahman. Well, maybe it's not itself isn't Brahman, but it's certainly reflecting Brahman. So that must be Brahman is somewhere behind it. It's an appearance tree. And I should be able to look deeper beyond the appearance to see the real tree. That's what's called the treeness of the tree. So Vivekananda said, I may not have a lot to give you. I may not have a lot of gold for you, but I can give you the goldness of gold. I can give you the secret of the silverness of silver. I can give you the secret of the treeness of the tree. See? I can give you the secret of Brahman in everything, he concluded, because that's what he was walking around in. So the tree is just one example in all the forms of nature that you can take for an ideal for meditation, for an alambana, or for a pratika, if you want. Talking about that yesterday, pratikas and pratimas, right? The last one here is near and dear souls are recognized as eternal companions from lifetime to lifetime. So you'll come into their presence, you'll come into their company, you'll come into their periphery. Maybe for a couple of years you won't even realize it. You'll see, I have an attraction to that person. Then 3 years later, so you're married to that person, see, and having children with them, and raising a dharmic family, hopefully, and raising people out of darkness. It all started back there because of your divine memory told you, there's my guru. As soon as you saw that person, there are people who now write to us, right? We're walking along the streets of Chicago and saw a poster of Swami Vivekananda giving a talk, saw his picture, saw their guru. That was it for them. They'd never heard of Indian philosophy. They'd never seen a Hindu man, just a person in Chicago with this background memory alive, at least more on the surface alive, so that when they saw the picture, they were stunned. And went there, heard the talk, that was it. They didn't have to go back and shred a bunch of karmas, cut a bunch of old nadis away, or work their way through a lot of old samskaras. They immediately jumped to a higher bhumika. This was not real anyway, was it? It was like darkness in a cave, so why should I sit there and watch it go away in slow motion? See, when I bring the torch of Jnana in to the cave of my mind, it should go away right away, and I should just let it go away. And so this is how people awaken to higher levels of their own consciousness almost inexplicably, whereas other beings are like trying to figure it out. See, Sri Ramakrishna said that about running a race in a circle. Racers start off, you look away and talk to a friend. There's one guy, well ahead of everyone else. And you look away and talk to your friend for a few seconds. You look back, and this man's already come along and caught up with the others. See? So he looks like he's in last. So when you look before, it looked like he was in first. Now you look back, and he looks like he's in last place. So this is running the race in ignorance. But you can immediately get off the whole track and just exit the race and awaken Some guru in the stands will say, do you know that that's a race and you'll never win it? Come here's the exit, you see. And so you let them all run on in the cycle, and you just get out the exit the stadium and into the light, free, you see. So appearances can be deceiving. Since we don't want to go through all of this, this is kind of the essence of it, and it goes nicely with there. I'll just end with this quote of Holy Mother here. We had Swami Vivekananda's nice quote. Here's how Holy Mother says it. To those who remember by virtue of good merit that all of this is Maya's play and believe that God alone is the only reality, should I not offer a little help and encouragement? So never forget you have a mother. Using that same analogy earlier, I didn't know about God with form, and I didn't know about the formless God in my life, raised with my parents the first 20 years, right? All of a sudden, I was awake to form and formlessness. What else did I awaken to? The Divine Mother of the universe. There's a song in India that says, I saw my guru, I came to my guru, I saw him worshiping the Divine Mother. I couldn't understand. Now I'm worshiping the Divine Mother. So by example, I saw him doing that. You remember all the Upanisads we studied, where Ribu is teaching his son and so forth. Oh, I took this path of the Divine Mother, worshipped her for 40 years and had a vision of her. You can do the same. So his son does that and has a vision of her. So to awaken to divine reality like that, it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't already in your memory. If form and formlessness had have been told to me, and I didn't have any of this in my background, I wouldn't have been practicing it. I wouldn't have learned puja. I wouldn't have taken up a scripture and read the wisdom of India, and so forth and so on. It had to be back in there first, and to be brought forward at some event in my waking, dreaming, and deep sleep life. So these are all suggestions of how people are having these experiences even long before they're awakened. It's like having a beautiful dream and you just knew nothing. You were just in darkness. All of a sudden, in the darkness, beautiful dream happened to you and went away. That's this beautiful awakening of spiritual enlightenment. So subtitle there, or the title of it, The Role of Mind and Memory at Rebirth, and Developing a Conscious Retentive Memory. It's a directive from the Divine Mother of the universe. And she says, Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Smriti Rupena Samstita Namastasya Namastasya in the scriptures. Ya Devi, Salute Devi, Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, of all moods, of all forms, inherent in everything. Smriti Rupena, may the form of memory, Rupena, Rupa, Smriti, may Smriti Rupena Samstita, may I become steady in the form of my own memory. Namastasya, Namastasya. So you're praying to Mother for that to awaken in you, so that you can grasp it and hold on to it forever, for good. Chitti Rupena Ya Kritsnamisat Vyapyas Tatajagad. The scripture goes on. And also, Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu, Swapna Rupena Samsita. May my dreams, you appear as my dreams, Mother. Shishupti Rupena Samsita. You appear as my dream state, O Mother. You see, so you're taking everything there and offering it to the Mother so that she will awaken you, as we just said back here. Everything in relativity, including objects, start to reflect the light of Brahman, if you just ask her to do that for you. Te Gyan Yoga Nugata Upashan. They practiced meditation, they saw the Devatma Shakti. They're trying to tell you this in one sentence. in the Upanishads. I didn't linger on it. I went on to other teachings, but that's how it happened. I practiced meditation. I saw her. So it's the direct divine experience of so many souls, particularly in the East, in older times, that this was a fact and this happened to them. And then they joined the ranks of the knowers of Brahman. So practice that spiritual life, austerity, and so on, until you can join the ranks of the knowers of Brahman, and then they will accept you and give you the highest teachings. I chanted that at both classes last week and the week before. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariparshena sevaya. Serve them. And then they'll give you this highest initiation. Let's go back then where we were going to pick up then the next Ajnana Bhumika, which is the very last one. Talk about what will have been 3 hours of looking at this, 1 hour each week. That's not very much to give to it, actually. But if you're trying to awaken your divine memory, Smriti Rupena Samstita, you want to become steady in it, then you're going to take this with you all week and think about it. You're not going to just walk out of here and forget it. Oh, I remember my teacher telling me, think about the mother, ask her to awaken your divine memory. And then you're giving it energy. You yourself are actually awakening. She's standing back and laughing at you. He wants me to do it. He's doing it already. Now he just has to remember that he's doing it. And he has to remember that he did it already. And he doesn't want to do it again. So those are 3 things, you see. He's remembering that he can do it for himself. He's remembering that he's already done it. And he's remembering that he never wants to do it again, right? Waking up from sleep is a terrible thing. Especially if your sleep has been attended by darkness and ignorance, which is less and less the case. We're finding, right? When you get to this Swapna Jagrat, where all the world and the waking and the dream state are beginning to become brought together, coalesced, and you're beginning to think, wow, who's doing the coalescing? That's really a very interesting double dream I'm having, right? And as you're saying this, you're not aware of the fact that you're the witness of that there's someone speaking apart from it, right? That there's someone knowing apart from them. It's funny how that consciousness is just escapes you, like the eye can't see itself. It can see everything, but it can't see itself. In that way, the knower begins to know everything, but it never just stops and say, who's that's knowing it? That's Atmavichara teachings of Ramana Maharshi and so forth, right? Waking up in those kinds of state, to those kinds of levels. And that's why we sing to these great teachers who are our gurus, you see. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Eva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Sakshi Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So my guru is Brahma, my guru is Vishnu, my guru is Devo Maheshwara. Who's Devo Maheshwara? Well, if you've already saluted Brahma and Vishnu, who's left? Shiva is the great God, Devo Maheshwara, and to which everything is dissolving. See, so, I mean, if you know him, all of this is seen as a dream, and then it dissolves back into his light. So that's why you salute them, you see, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, because they're the beginning, middle, and end of everything. They're the projection, sustenance, and withdrawal of everything. They're those powers of Brahman which facilitate that. All those triputis and all those contemplations were billions and billions of souls at different levels of awareness, like waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. So why worship, you see? All lives accompanied by worship from then on of the deities. I remembered them. So it doesn't take you long to fashion up a picture of them, put a candle there, some incense, and sit really quickly and do the mantra, you see, to them. And then begin to wake up more and more. This feels good. I got to take it deeper. And I take it so deeper that pretty Brahma and Vishnu and Shiva are pretty much my own self now, you see. I don't see any difference between them and I. They've absorbed me completely. So that's why these hymns and help us to remember the connections between Jnanam, and Dhyanam and Bhakti. So in our time remaining, we can arrive at this red line. Let's see, basically, how is it that I move from this last residue of darkness in my mind into the light of Subecha. So this last residue is called, fittingly, Sushupti. I finally reached deep sleep. That is a more conscious deep sleep in which all of this gets absorbed back into it. So like you say, right, the waking state, the dreaming state, all came out of the deep sleep state because there are seeds in deep sleep, seed thoughts. Now they're getting dissolved back into it. My waking body, my dreaming body, my deep sleep body, they also came out of the highest reality. So they're all getting absorbed one at a time back into my deep sleep state. And who's doing it? My waking state, Brahman's doing it. My dreaming state, Vishnu's doing it. My deep sleep state, Shiva's doing it. They're all helping me dissolve all these three, triputi to triputi, back into this deep sleep state where all the seeds are. And then I can awaken fully to my true nature. It's called Turiya. That's up here. We still have a climb to do over 2 weeks. Isn't it exciting? Let's do it together, hand in hand. So, fond expectation, I'm talking ahead of the time, right? We haven't yet climbed out of the last vestige of darkness. So that's just called Sushupti. Deep sleep state, according to the advices like Gaudapada, is called pragya. There's great wisdom there, but we're still not aware of it. Somehow deep sleep is just so vacuous, so wide, so infinite, and so unlit by our own consciousness that we can actually go into it and not see that that's the source or cause of everything. If we were to see it and we weren't ready for it, then we'd start to manipulate the things in nature. Prakriti Laya. We'd become a Prakriti Laya. We'd manipulate everything that's below us for power, almost going back to the lower states, right? But if we awaken and go further beyond the occult powers, then we find what's called the rain cloud of virtues, Dharma Mega Samadhi. And that's beginning to dawn here. You can see how Lord Vasishtha is introducing this to Ramchandra, the young teenager. At Sushupti, the soul realizes all states are beset with pain. If you want to be a true Buddhist, then you have to accept the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is suffering is. So this is another way, thousands of years before the Four Noble Truths were put together in that way by Lord Buddha himself. Lord Vasishtha was talking to Ramchandra, the early avatar, about how the seers have realized that all this is beset with pain. And pleasure isn't a way out. Pleasure is just another form of pain. As I was saying, I think, very lucidly just a few minutes ago. So on top of that, and this is probably the pivotal thing that will vault the soul into Jnana Bhumika, number one, is that it perceives all worlds are in Maya. So it begins to learn that, as Vivekananda told us, Nama Rupa Desha Kala Nimitta, that Nama, name, Rupa, form, Desha, space, Kala, time, and Nimitta, cause and effect, are all in Maya. That's what Maya is. And if you realize that, you say, well, I'm not supposed to be in Maya. And I've heard that my soul never is in Maya, but my mind fell into it, but my soul's not there. Like Krishna tells Arjuna, it all happens in nature, not in your soul, in the Gita. So if that dawns on a person, when the light is visible to him, then he's going to penetrate through into the Jnana Bhumika. If it dawns on them in a dream, then it's not going to happen. It's not ready yet, right? You see so many people having spiritual experiences and they don't walk away enlightened from them. You hear of so many people having powerful dreams, they don't wake up enlightened from them. This explains it. It's got to be totally, you have to be totally qualified and ready in stages with the deities on your side, with the Jnana wisdom learned and memorized, with your divine memory beginning to come out of hiding and repossessing, with your mind in your possession again. Why don't people awaken? Sri Ramakrishna said last week in the God blogs, because their mind has been mortgaged to the bank of the world. See, they have to get their mind back. So it bespeaks in advance that they don't have their own mind yet. Sri Ramakrishna is another great soul that we like to sing about. Paramaguru Siddha Yogi, Paramaguru Siddha Yogi, Matri Bhakta Yugavatar, Paramahamsa Sri Ramakrishna, Paramahamsa Sri Ramakrishna, Lahu Pranam, Namaskar. Namaskar, we salute that great soul. Great teacher, illumined yogi, devotee of the Divine Mother, and avatar of the age. O Supreme Soul of my soul, accept my prostrations, accept my salutations. You have awakened Mother Kali, the destroyer of evil, from the sacred cremation grounds of India, and with the nectar of her holy name, you have flooded the land once again. Yeah. Qazi Nazrul Islam, great, famous Sufi poet who was a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. Don't hear him mentioned much in the gospel and so forth, but you see that these great souls of other religions were very much at the feet of Sri Ramakrishna, realizing what a great soul had come. Talk about total recall, divine memory, and so forth. Have we ever seen such a being like that, especially recently on earth? So this all to say that when you see a great light like that, whether it's embodied or in your own deep sleep state, or hopefully both, you put them together, the external with the internal, then you'll realize that all these worlds are a play in Maya. And it's been supported by what? The fact that you just came out of the play as a dream. And that you were in a waking state with your companion as lust, anger, greed, envy, pride, lust, grief, shame, pride of caste, pride of lineage. These were your companions in the waking state. So you came out of that too. So there's no way in hell, which this is, there's no way in hell that it's not going to make a huge impression on you when you come upon that four-letter word, the queen of all four-letter words, Maya. Damn, shit, other words they use, which are cuss words, are nothing compared to Maya. That four-letter word has everyone under its control, even Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, who we just sang about, according to the scriptures. But the thing is that they know about it. Okay? So, as Sri Ramakrishna said, we're all in Maya, but never study it up close. It'll suck you in, and you'll forget yourself. Study it from a distance, because you want to make sure that you know both reality and relativity. That is, that you asato mas sadgamaya, awaken by degrees from darkness into light. Might as well put that here on this chart. Asato mas sadgamaya. Maybe awaken from darkness into light. Or na asat vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sataha. The seers have seen both the unreal and the real, Arjuna. And they've seen that the unreal never really exists, and the real always is. There is nothing but the real out there. So I'm seeing the unreal where I should be seeing the real here. Here I'm becoming awake to the fact that the unreal is all there is. But I'm going to have those stages of awareness and awakening in phases. That's what we're going to be studying next week. So, Sushupti, as we have a few more minutes here, let's just make a general introduction to ourselves of the first Jnana Bhumika. You can see there it has a lot more to say about it than, that is, Lord Vasishtha has a lot more to say about it than there is to say about these states of darkness. So there are 4 teachings there that I extracted out of Yoga Vasishtha to help explain what's called Subhecha. Subhecha is attraction for the path of indifference. If you find out everything's in Maya, or everything consists of Maya, there are 2 tendencies. One's risky and one's informed. The risky one is to give up and become fatalistic, pessimistic. Oh, I'm in Maya. Oh, I have too many karmas. Oh, I'll never reach the goal. That's one tendency. When you see that Maya's got everything under its control, you think you can't get out of it. But what's going to help you, following that path of indifference, and becoming detached from everything. Not depressed, but detached. Those are 2 words that begin with D and E. See, we want to take that first one to heart. Detachment is very important. It's called vairagyam. I'll go more through this next week. Next one is desires to enjoy jnana essence. And that has to go in tandem with the next one. Seeks guidance of an illumined soul. Usually, in my case it was true, it was scriptures first and then guru. So I found the scriptures, I remembered them in my early 20s. And I was reading the Vivekachudamani early, of course the Bhagavad Gita, and Gospel of Ramakrishna came into my hands almost first of all. So that was long before I met Swami Shishananda, some years before. So at least I can say from my own experience that, the scriptures came first, like this. Desire to enjoy jnana essence. So I had found out about this through relationships, basically, that didn't fulfill and which betrayed society and all that, and how people were at the time, especially in the Western society, and back then in the late 60s, early 70s. So it didn't take long for me then to realize that there was some subtle enjoyment to be had from a book, you see, from words. A lot of people retreat into words, but they'll retreat into a dime store novel, but they can't retreat into Yoga Vasishtha, you see. That's an acquired taste, you might say. And so you'll remember, you see, how beautiful it was to hear the truth. And truth will itself drive you on. She who since birth has ever led me on through paths of trouble to perfection's goal, mother wise in her own sweet and playful ways. See? She will drive you on with her truth. She who has always and ever illumined my understanding. You see that? Illumination for the intellect. What's first? Peace of mind. What's second? Health for the body. What's third? Inspiration for the intellect. And then non-duality for the soul. So you can see how all of these four are coming unto wraps, into possession of a person who's beginning to set path on the Sapta Jnana Bhumikas. That's a good place to end. We'll look at the first Jnana Bhumika, called Subhecha, next week. And for the next 2 weeks, by the time we finish our 2 hours together, an hour a week, this Sunday and next Sunday, we'll have reached the state together of Turiya, and we can celebrate together in the ecstasy of non-dual bliss. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Andvaititam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamashari Laksham Nityam Vimalamatchalam Bhadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tanamami. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We salute the leader of our souls, through whose grace our ignorance is dispelled, who is beyond life and death, pleasure and pain, light and darkness. Our eternal salutations to that one who is the truth of life and existence, and whom the saints and sages call by many names. May he awaken us from darkness and delusion, so that we can realize the truth in this very life.